Detective Lane stood in the quiet artist's studio. The window looked over a small city street full of rain. The air held the smell of paint and something old. The last owner of this room, a man who never answered his phone or door, had not been seen for days. Lane checked her notebook. She walked past the easel, where a painting waited with shapes and colors not quite finished. The room was silent except for a clock ticking somewhere behind her. Lane stared at the paintings on the wall. Each one showed a different place in the city. One painting showed a park. Lane remembered a girl who was missing last winter. Her scarf was just like that. Another painting showed a dark alley. There was a broken bottle drawn right next to a black shoe. Lane thought of a case from last year. The odd thing was these paintings were finished before those real things happened. She turned to the last painting. It was not finished yet. It showed a room with a stool and a large window. Her own notebook was on the table just like the one she carried right now. Lane shivered. She took a step away from the painting. Night came quickly. The rain tapped harder on the glass. She called for help, but her radio hissed static. Lane sat down to wait for morning. The clock ticked. Shadows stretched across the floor. In the dim light, Lane looked back at the painting. Something small had changed on the canvas. Her pencil, which was in her hand a moment ago, was now in the painting too, next to the notebook. Lane reached for her pencil. It was gone. The shadows in the painting seemed a little longer too. She rubbed her eyes and stared at the piece. Another line appeared on the canvas, slow and sure, like an invisible hand was drawing while she watched. Lane stood up quickly. The new lines showed her own shadow standing by the window looking out. The detective didn't move. The brush strokes grew sharper. Now the shadow in the painting wasn't alone. A second shadow, long and thin, now stood behind the first. Lane spun around. The room behind her was empty. The painting now showed both shadows, Lane's and the strange new one, standing together. The empty paint jar next to the easel tipped over on its own. Paint dripped across the floor. Lane turned back to the canvas. Now her painted face started to look scared. The new shadow's hand was reaching for her painted shoulder. Lane tried the door. It wouldn't open. Behind her in the painting, the shadows began to mix together. Lane felt cold. She pressed her hand to the glass, but her reflection was gone. Only the artist's painting stared back at her, growing every second, even when she closed her eyes.